Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest edition of the Fireside with Founders and Leaders podcast. Happy New Year. We're in 2026. Thank you for continuing to join us. I've got an amazing episode for you today. I'm speaking to the quite simply remarkable Anthee Merichovitis, who is Chief Transformation Officer working in PE-backed organizations. So that's private equity-backed organizations. For anyone who's got a keen interest in understanding what it's like to work in these types of organizations, this is a great episode for you to get some first-hand insight. Now, as well as talking a bit about what it's like to work in these organizations, we talk about Anthee's career path, which has been anything but linear so far. So looking at how you can try and implement some of the things that she's done over the last 10 years to engineer her dream role in this chief transformation position that she's in at the moment, and looking at where she's going to go to take things further. So some great insights, some really practical tips and hints that will help people, and some things that you certainly won't know about what it's like and what it takes to work in a PE-backed organization. Hello, Anthee. Welcome to the podcast.
Hello, Rupert. Good to be here.
Really good to be here in the fabulous London Bridge today. So thank you for making the effort to come in to what I feel is probably the new home for any in-person recordings that we'll do for this podcast from now on.
It looks beautiful. It looks very cozy.
Feels like almost we just need the fire, and then it really is a fireside chat.
Indeed,
Right, we're nearly
indeed.
there. Well, thank you so much for coming in and joining me. We're going to talk about a lot of things today, a lot about your background, some of the things that you've done, of course, a bit about the PE world, because that is your background and your bread and butter. And I think there's some really great insights that we can tuck into that people won't know, and people are asking lots of questions about this type of stuff. So, but before we do that, can you give us a brief history as to like who you are? Who is Anthee?
I am, first of all, I'm a mom of
Great.
Harry.
Yeah.
We discussed that before. Harry's 3 years old. And I work in technology for the last 10
Yep.
years. So I'm quite fortunate to have been in the UK for the last 10 years. And from the beginning, I joined some of the most impressive organizations. And grew myself further in there, so we can discuss more. And I am originally I'm Greek, so I'm Greek at heart,
Yeah.
and I do a lot of work as well when it comes to philanthropy with Smile Train in Africa at this period of time, which is something that gives me deep meaning and gives me deep purpose as well. So a lot of roles,
Yeah, lots of different things.
a lot
So
of hats.
yeah, absolutely. And we're going to tuck into some of that stuff
Yeah,
as we go through the course of this
yeah.
conversation, which I'm genuinely really
Mm.
excited about. Your career hasn't been linear, shall
Mm.
we say? Like
Mm.
you've been quite, we've called it squiggly before, I think, when
Mm.
we've talked off air. So tell us about your career path, like
Mhm.
where you started your career journey, starting in sales, moving through sort of FMCG
Mhm.
into fintech,
Mhm.
PE-backed organizations. Like, talk to us a bit more about how you've made that transition.
Absolutely. So I started originally, I'm coming from a family business background, which I think makes this podcast fantastic because it ticks both boxes in terms of founder and leader, right?
Yeah.
Coming from family business background, being carried the bag for more than 80 years in the retail FMCG industry, and then moved into technology something less than 10 years ago and worked directly for private equity backed SaaS enterprise B2B SaaS software providers.
Hmm.
And for the last decade, I grew myself within that industry. Originally, I was driving more a go-to-market since I was coming from sales, the CRO organization, and the go-to-market commercial roles is in my sweet spot and something that is something that I absolutely love doing as well. So originally, I was driving go-to-market strategy roles. And then slowly grew up, got myself promoted into a chief of staff role for the CEO.
Nice.
And lastly, for the last 3.5 years, I am a chief transformation officer.
And how do you go about sort of making that sort of moment? Was there a moment where you went, actually, I really want to change and move from, for example, fast-moving consumer goods into fintech, finance. I'm changing in terms of the industries because
Mm.
a lot of people will go through their careers. They'll be doing the same thing for
Yeah.
maybe 20 years, and they'll wake up one day and go, "Oh man, like I want to change. I want to do something differently." So was there a pivotal moment where you woke up and you thought I wanted to do something differently, or was it
Yeah,
intentional?
I mean, first of all, I was in Greece,
Yep.
so born and raised in Greece. I was in the family business, and I think a lot of your audience that they run their own business or grew up in a family business resonate with the fact that it's a tough gig,
Mhm.
it's difficult,
Yep.
right? It has its challenges, and it gives you an incredible platform for growth because you are wearing multiple roles and you're understanding what it takes to run a business
Mhm.
and make it successful. And I think after a while, I felt, I don't feel I belong in the country anymore. I don't think I'm maximizing my potential.
Yep.
Number two, I don't see the opportunity for me to grow within the industry I'm in. The retail space, especially the supermarket channels that I was active,
Mhm.
it's a difficult space, right? Especially for the mid market suppliers, not the Proctors and the big
Yeah.
providers, right? The suppliers. I'm talking about the rest of us.
Yeah.
Um, it's competitive.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everyone wants a piece of a pie, and the space in the shelves is very limited, right? So you have to pay for the space, you have to merchandise it, you need to make sure that the product is turning around fast, etc., etc.,
Yeah.
etc. So um, I felt, okay, this is not what I want to do. Like fast forward, I'm closing my eyes. How does Anthee looks like in 20 years from now?
Yeah.
Do I see myself? And that was a no.
Okay.
So at that point, that was like this kind of light bulb moment for me. At that point, it was all about how do I drive a trend break? And I find an incredible beneficial moment. I find it very, very profound to pause and think, okay, if I continue operating the way I operate, what does my future, the outlook looks like?
Yeah.
And how can I drive a trend break? And for me, the trend break was not only I need to change the vertical, the industry I'm in, I need to change the vertical, the industry I'm in, I need to leave the country I'm in,
Yeah.
and I need to break the gold change, which is called family
Yeah.
and family business. And usually I think this is the toughest of the three,
Yeah.
because especially when you work for a family business, everything is there.
You've got a
From your
responsibility, don't you?
car to your
Yeah.
mobile phone to your credit cards to the fact that you run 10 things in the business, 10 roles that for you to be replaced, they need multiple people. So I found the two of them, the country and the vertical, easier by doing an executive MBA. But the mental element of breaking free,
Mhm.
if I may use the
Yeah.
word, from the family business was the toughest one that took me many years to truly feel that level of, okay, now I have that kind of psychogeographical distance on truly understanding who am I?
Yeah.
Who do I want to be? Like who is Anthee outside the family business and the influences from that. So I think that's what led me to do the executive MBA global.
Mhm.
I was the first Greek that did in parallel at Columbia Business School, London Business School, and Hong Kong University did an executive MBA. So I was flying every month to a different
Wow.
one of these three campuses,
Yeah.
and at the end, I fell in love with the UK
Yeah.
and London, and I decided to stay here.
Oh, very good. Well, you are our gain ultimately in terms of London. So, um,
I feel it's mutual,
yeah,
Rupert.
good. Well, thank you. I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're pleased to be here. Look, it's a really tough thing to do, as you've just mentioned, right? To go and break that
Mm,
cycle, and a lot of people, as I said earlier,
mm,
they get stuck into it.
mm,
I think that by the fact that you were prepared to go and do your MBA,
mm.
travel around, like most of the time, if people are prepared to make that sort of commitment, they're prepared to make that commitment to leave their home country as well. I think I've seen some statistics. I can't remember off the top of my head. I wish I could now, but that you're more likely to succeed if you're prepared to leave your home country and emigrate to another country, because you've got nothing else to lose ultimately, or
Mm.
you're really, you know, intentional perhaps about what your goals are and why you're doing what you're doing. So do you feel that by leaving Greece and leaving all of that sort of past life behind you, so to speak, which sounds really dramatic, but it's not meant to be,
Mm.
did that help you to sort of really push forward and go, this is Anthee 2.0, if you like?
100%.
Yeah.
I think you're spot on, right? 100%. Especially if you leave your home country, right, where you were born and raised and where your family is. I think you need to be very, very intentional of what you're trying to achieve.
Mhm.
And I'm someone that I am very strategic. I'm a visionary. So I can see, I know who I am now, who I will be in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, right? Have always been like that since I
Mhm.
was a kid.
Yeah.
Um, and I usually reverse engineer it and say, okay, how can I get there? There are multiple paths to get there. But you said the right word, Rupert. You need to be intentional.
Mhm.
And when you are intentional, I think one thing that I find very important is you need to be able to shut down the noise,
Yeah.
because there's a lot of noise around, and a lot of times, especially if you are moving in a new country, everything is new culture, new systems, new processes, new way of communicating, new language, etc. um, you need to allow yourself to fail. You need to allow yourself to fall,
Yeah.
as long as you pick yourself up again and again and again. So there is this element of reinvention,
Mhm.
working on your next version. There's the element of resilience. There is the element of insistence and persistence. I'm gonna keep heading to my goal, to my target. And no one said it's gonna be easy, but if it was easy, everyone would have done it,
Quite simple, right?
right?
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
and you should be fine with that. I think the other element with moving in a new country that I find very interesting is, um, you, one thing that really, really I feel helped my journey and made me love this country that I am here in the UK even more is the fact that I did not come in with my Greek mentality
Mm.
and try to implement it here. I walked in with an element of curiosity, of truly understanding, okay, how a small island in the map really managed to make the entire world speak their language.
Yeah.
And it's something I have said that to a lot of people that they know me well, that there is this kind of true admiration of how a country like the UK managed to be the UK across the
Yeah.
centuries and truly dominate the world.
Yeah.
Either it's politics or strategy or diplomacy or so it's when you come in with this mindset of curiosity, trying to really understand the culture,
Mhm.
try to really understand how the British are thinking, what makes them successful, how do they operate, what are the manners. I was very impressed of the
Yeah,
manners.
okay.
um I think you are setting yourself up for success
Yeah.
versus trying to be in your own bubble, replicate what you already know in
Yeah.
an environment, and vice versa, right? If I were to take what I'm doing here and try to put them in an environment like Greece, 99.9% I wouldn't have been successful because it operates on a different system.
Yeah. And that's a really important thing to mention, isn't it? It's the
100%.
systems, because you talked about the UK being, Great Britain, and it is a great country, and I love the UK, but there's also lots of people at the moment, as this is recorded, leaving the UK, right, to go to
100%.
other
Yeah,
places.
I agree.
And the people that have success in those other places tend to work to the systems in those
Yeah.
countries rather than just purely, taking up what they've done in one country and moving it to another. It doesn't tend to work like that.
Yeah. Even though I would say, and we don't need to go that direction because this is more politics, but I would say the reason for the brain drain, let's say now that it's happening,
Mm.
is more taxation
Yes.
rather than I don't like the system, I don't like the culture. It's more what are the incentives you are giving me to increase my quality of life here,
Yeah.
right?
I think that's another podcast all
Yeah,
in
that's another
itself.
podcast. That's another
Yeah,
episode on
yeah.
its own.
I'm not well qualified to talk about that
Me
enough.
either. Me
I've got
either.
my opinions, but I'll
Yeah.
keep them to myself for now. So we talked a bit about, obviously, your background more recently, PE
Mm.
backed environments. Why is it that so many leaders want to get into PE firms, into that environment? Why do you think it's such a great place to be that people want to be in there?
That's a good question. I've spent the last few months actually being quite active in a lot of roundtables and networking events, meeting some of the most phenomenal people in the country and across the world. And they are all very much. I agree with you. They are very much interested in joining private equity backed business.
Mm.
I don't have the answer to this.
Okay.
I really don't. And many times I'm asking them, and I don't get a clear answer either. I think there's a hype in the wording
Yeah.
of it without truly understanding the implications.
Yeah.
But that's my take. Not sure if it's correct.
Yeah. Okay.
The thing is that I have been quite fortunate, if I may say, the fact that from the beginning I joined the technology industry, I work for a private equity backed business. Even though at that time I didn't know what this means,
Yeah.
I was quite junior and starting myself from not an executive roles, thus didn't have the exposure needed. Um, I was quite fortunate to understand, okay, this is a different ball game,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
It's pace,
Yeah.
it's precision, it's execution, and this period of time as well, since 2022 and onwards, is profitable growth.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's a completely it's you don't only manage the transformation, the growth, you're managing the velocity and the expectations of the investors. So I don't know if the people that want to join the private equity backed businesses know that this is the level of pace and scrutiny they would have to expect.
That's really interesting because like people say they want to go into this sort of sector, but they don't know why. Like
Mm.
that almost baffles me sometimes. But I don't know if it's because people see pound signs, dollar signs, and think, okay, private equity could be exciting, could make a load of
Mm.
money on an exit, which is all these things are true,
Mhm.
right? They're all possibilities, but it's not necessarily the sole reason to get into these sort of areas.
Mm.
So perhaps I'll ask you the question in a different way. What do you like about it?
What I just said, because I am fast on the way I am as an individual. I love the fact that um, first of all, I haven't worked for a non-private equity
Yeah.
backed
Okay.
software provider, which doesn't help to answer in a more
Yeah.
holistic,
Okay. So
rounded
yeah.
way your question. However, what I like about and staying with the private equity, it's not that I just like it. I'm passionate about it. I actually did a few months back a certificate at Imperial College on the private equity
Mm-hmm.
sector. Um, what I love about it is the fact that it is all about shareholder value.
Mm-hmm.
It's all about and increasing the enterprise value of the business,
Yeah.
which for me it's the reason to exist.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
If we cannot add value either by going to market better, selling more, becoming more sticky, have a customer that is not only buying from us but is loyal, so it keeps coming back to us, keeps opening door for us, etc. And if we don't do that in a way that is profitable in terms of our bottom
Mm-hmm.
line, then why do we exist?
Yeah.
So for me, it goes back to the principles of entrepreneurship and business existence. And especially in the private equity, what I love is that there's zero room for theatrics,
Yeah.
which is how I am. I'm quite direct.
Yeah.
I'm quite transparent. I always lead with radical transparency. Some environments like it, some others not, and that's fine.
Yeah.
Um, but I think in the private equity world, things are quite simple:
Yeah. People
execution,
say it as it is.
impact, performance, and ultimately shareholder value for everyone.
Yeah.
For the shareholder, the investors, for the partners, for the employees, for everyone.
Do you think that the rest of the investment world or the business world even has woken up to that a little bit in recent years? 'Cause you talked about certainly since 2022, right? It's about growth, profitability, rather than just growth for the sake
Mm,
of growth, which I believe like mostly the PE world has been based around profitability, right? It's about making money. It's a business,
mm,
want to make money. Whereas the VC market, and I appreciate you don't have direct experience working in this space, but my experience working with people in this space is that it wasn't about making money straight away. plenty of businesses out there that were seen as like high value businesses but never made any money. And is that something that now is disappearing, and you're seeing a trend of?
I think so.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think up to 2022, the transactions we're seeing in the market, they were all about multiples of revenue,
yeah,
right? And there are a lot of, and we don't need to call the names. There are a lot of tech businesses out there, and they were that they were not profitable for decades,
hmm,
but they were growing, and I think that, if I may call it, bubble, or that trend broke back in 2022,
yeah,
roughly mid 2022, and there were other things that happened during that period of time, like the semiconductor crisis, etc., that really helped accelerate that shift into really asking the question: how solid are you as a business? Do you truly grow profitably? Do you really add value there, not just by selling and spending,
hmm,
but by truly selling and scaling? So
yeah.
it became a movement rather than a momentum.
Yeah, okay. And that's where things have changed. And yeah,
100%. Yes.
nice. I want to talk a bit about your roles,
Mm,
if we can. So you talked about being chief of staff in your role, which I think is probably a misunderstood role, certainly in the UK market. I think
mm.
if you ask people, most people, what chief of staff does, they might think about politics or something like that. In terms of the US, and I know it's now been brought into some UK politics, roles and organisations, or parties, I should say, rather than organisations. So tell us a bit more about that role, because I think people don't necessarily understand, like, what does a chief of staff do?
I think you're correct, Rupert. I think it is a misunderstood role. So before I became a chief of staff, again, I was in the CRO organization, the sales organization, where things are straightforward.
Mhm.
It's black or white. You're the hero or the zero. You hit
Yeah.
the numbers, you grow your footprint, you increase the team success, and as such, you are impacting your top line, right? But what these roles, the go-to-market slash commercial strategy roles, really taught me, they start building in me the cross-functional cooperation type of muscle,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
Because you have to work with the sales team, the revenue operations, your marketing, etc. When the chief of staff role came in, I remember it since it was as if it was yesterday. I was probably the first, almost the first, I would say, um, chief of staff in the PE backed SaaS world
Yeah.
in the UK.
Yeah.
So I got the role in 2021. There was no chief of staff in the industry in the UK. And how I know that? I knew that because I was getting phone calls from recruiters saying to me what you just said.
Yeah.
Anthee, what is this role? Is this like a glorified EA role?
Yeah.
Um, we only see it in the White House.
Yeah.
In the US, though, the role was already popular. It was getting popularity across the tech world. It just took a few years to come to Europe, and especially in the UK market. So what is a chief of staff role? So the chief of staff role, it's not an admin role.
Yeah. It's definitely not.
Not an
No.
admin role, not a glorified EA
Yeah.
role. And if it's a glorified EA, this is not the role you want to be.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, it's a role where you are the right hand of the CEO. I'm talking about the CEO, chief of staff,
Yeah.
okay, which is what I've done. You're the right hand of the CEO. So you're sitting in the engine room running all the critical initiatives and programs for that office.
Yeah.
And you are the person that is structuring the office of the CEO, that has multiple dimensions and a lot of complexity as well. You are the person that navigates the relationships with the board of directors, the board of advisors, the investors, the executive team, what your CEO wants. So you are advocating their agenda. So there's always a loyalty
Yeah.
associated with that role. Usually is the number one role that you will be fired if your CEO is fired.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if
You're
there's
part of the team.
yeah,
Yeah.
you are their right hand. There is always an association of who you support.
Yeah.
And now, when you do this role, there are two archetypes. There is the archetype of I want to be a chief of staff.
Mm-hmm.
I'm comfortable being a chief of staff, which means I don't have a direct team, direct authority. Your currencies is influence and trust.
Yeah.
Or I see this role as a fast track acceleration in my career
Mm-hmm.
to get exposure 360 in the organization. And that will take me to the next level, which is a C-suite role.
Yeah.
And from the two archetypes, both of them are fine. It depends if you want to be a professional chief of staff or you see that as basically your leadership lab.
Yeah. And I think I know the answer to this question, but which one are you?
I was the second. I
Yep.
was always the second, but my CEO, the person who promoted me into that role, saw me as the second.
Yeah. Okay.
So the reason I remember it as if it was yesterday, when my boss came in, he said, "Listen, you know nothing outside the office of the CRO.
Yeah.
The only thing you know from your life is sales. So how about you take this role and you get exposed to the business and you grow yourself?" That's reinvention 3.0 now.
Yeah. Nice.
We keep
Yeah. We evolve.
evolve. So 3.0, you take that role and you get really exposed to the rest of the organization. You get exposed to board dynamics.
Mm-hmm.
Executive team complexity and where there's complexities, super confidential programs and projects, things that cannot, like your confidentiality and the level of confidentiality in this role is critical.
Yeah.
And we take it from there. And this is how I evolve into that with a view to get that exposure, understand what it is to be outside the office of the CRO, understand what it means being in, for instance, doing R&D in tech, professional service. What does it mean customer sentiment? Like things a bit further out from the direct running the numbers, bookings of the CRO, and stay there for at least 2.5, 3 years.
Nice. And
in
really
the role.
use it as an education, right? To learn.
100%.
And that's
100%. Especially in the private equity world, this role is even more imperative.
Yeah.
Because it's the person that is acting as the glue as well. It's similar to transformation and not so similar, but there are some elements that they are quite similar.
Mm-hmm.
Acts as the glue between what your board or your shareholders want to see versus what your CEO wants to do versus what the executive team can do.
Yeah.
So again, your currencies is trust, is influence. You don't have direct teams, so your influence to drive that kind of the behavior you want to see is critical. That's why whoever has the role needs to be highly diplomatic and understand that sometimes you don't need to share everything you hear.
Okay.
You have to keep some things for yourself because it's not helping the people that you are supporting.
So slightly political sometimes, almost.
100%.
Yeah.
You need to have critical mindset,
Yeah.
like a very critical mind on the information you're getting.
And so not everyone's going to be in a position where they've got a great CEO who actually says, do you know what, this is the position I think you need to move into to get ahead. I know where you're going. I can see the path you're on. I want to help you get there faster. So how would you suggest that other people perhaps listening to this who are thinking, actually, I want to be that type B type person like you, want to get ahead, want to get more, further into the room, into other potential C-suite roles. How do they engineer that move into chief of staff as a role? If
Go for it. Ask it.
Just ask for it.
Ask for it.
Yeah.
Build the job description you want. Do your research. Never go unprepared.
Yeah.
Never. Do your research. Build the job description you want. Understand the areas that you will bring value to. Why you?
Yeah.
Right? Versus someone else.
Mm-hmm.
Understand the areas that you need to be exposed as well to grow and further evolve, and build the relationship so that someone, I think because of the sensitivity of the role, trust, I keep coming back to trust. That's why a lot of times you see the chief of staffs evolving from within the business because people know them for a year or two, so they know who they are. They know the values they operate. I think your values really dictate if you're going to be a successful chief of staff. So if I had to say something is, there is a chance you'll land a chief of staff role from the outside in, but you'll be even more empowered and enabled if you come from the inside. So build build what you want to ask and ask for it.
Nice. I love that. That's so true
And
of most
position
things.
yourself. It's all about branding, right? Personal branding. Position yourself. You are a doer. You can execute. You're the fixer, because ultimately this is what it is, a behind the scenes fixer. How do you do that?
Yeah,
And
nice.
showcase it.
And you've got to do it, ultimately. That's the key.
100%. You have to do it.
And now you've then transitioned into a transformation role, so CTO, since that role of chief of staff. So you're still on that path and that ever growing journey and lessons that you're learning along the way. A lot of people think that transformation is all about strategy, lots of decks, big ideas, that sort of stuff. Like, what's the truth?
I think, like the chief of staff, transformation is a misunderstood role as well. But it depends who you speak to. You may speak to chief transformation officers, and the only thing they've done is interim roles. So in that case, they're all about coming in, fixing things, make sure they leave behind a legacy, the foundation for the business to operate, and leave.
That's quite common, isn't it?
Which is quite common. It's quite common. My experience, I have the role the last 2.5 years as the chief strategy and transformation officer, and then chief transformation officer and operations officer, is that this is not, especially if it's a permanent role within the organization, it's not an internal consulting function.
Yep.
And if you are building an internal consulting function, either you're very big, $1 billion plus, or you're building it wrong.
Yep.
Why? Because transformation is all about building the sustainable foundation for growth.
Yeah.
Going back to what we said of what does the private equity world wants, which is the profitable growth, it's all about how do you future-proof the organization to support that level of growth. So let's say we have a business that grows 20-25% year over year with a bottom line 30-35% year over year. So how can you keep growing at that level? Because that's the predicament a chief transformation officer is in, because they need to sustain that growth. But the more you grow, the more difficult it becomes. The foundations are not the same. So if you are 100 million, 150 million, it takes a transformation to get to 350.
Yeah.
It takes a different transformation to get you to 550, and this different one to get you to 801 billion. So by the time you are 100 million, 150 to 1 billion, you need 4 different types of transformations.
And do you need 4 different types of transformation officer? Or
Not necessarily. It depends on who you have hired.
Yep.
But the point I'm making is, this is not an internal consulting role. It's not just beautiful decks. It needs to have whatever you build in terms of vision and strategy with your CEO, because ultimately you are the CEO. That's a similarity with the chief of staff. The chief transformation officer doesn't exist without the CEO buy-in, right? So whatever you build in terms of executing their vision needs to be paired with operational realism. It's not just beautiful slides. It needs to be how do we make the impact by when?
Yeah.
So what are we doing in terms of programs? How are we rewiring the belief of our people? Because everything starts from the people. How do we remove any resistance? There's always resistance. So how do you remove the resistance?
Yeah.
And ultimately, when do we expect this impact we're making to hit the P&L?
And how do you do that with the resistance? Because that's the biggest challenge. I speak to a lot of people. And as you say, people are the biggest asset, but they can also be the biggest problems. And especially when you're going through change, it can be a real challenge, because they're people, they're humans at the end of it. So you've got to try and nurture them through it. So how do you manage that?
For sure, it is the most challenging element. I never see people as the problem.
Okay.
I see if I'm not able as a leader to help you see the why. That's why I always lead with the power of why. I love Simon Sinek, and I was given his book one day and I just fell in love. And since then I give this book to everyone in my teams when they start working with me, because I cannot ask you to change if you don't understand the why. What's in it for you? How what you will be changing will benefit yourself, your teams, your business, right? The business in general. How we're part of the same journey, how we're part of the same boat. So I've never seen people as a problem. I've seen me, the way I position things, either they resonate or not. If they don't resonate, I need to change my way.
Hmm.
If they do resonate, I double down on that and continue like that.
Yeah.
So it's all about being able to articulate the why we're asking to change. That's part one of
Yeah.
resistance. Number two, what's in it for them,
Yeah.
right? And number three, share the vision. You always go back to your vision.
Yeah.
Everyone wants to be part of a successful story.
Yeah.
Everyone wants to be part of that. Either it's personal or professional, either it's your friends, your family, your colleagues. No one will doubt your ability to get things done once you've proven this. So they want to be part of that story.
I find this fascinating because it almost feels full circle. That's a lot of those things you're talking about are like sales 101. If you're thinking about your
It is
original background,
sales.
it's sales, right?
It,
You're
it,
telling
it,
the story.
it is sales. It's influence.
Yeah.
So I think that's why I didn't pursue this role. It
Yeah.
came to me.
Yeah.
But I love it. And I love it because it blends all the things that I've done in my life up to this day. It is sales because you need to sell the vision of your CEO together with your CEO. You need to sell the why some things have to change, why some things brought us here, but not necessarily take us further. And it is execution.
Yep.
So you still need to fix things, but you're not a behind the scenes fixer like a chief of staff. You are front stage.
Yeah.
And one thing that I always say is that you need to be comfortable by being uncomfortable. If you are hiring a chief transformation officer and you expect not to receive an unhappy call, then for sure you have hired the wrong transformation officer.
Yeah.
Because there is no such thing that you transform a business at its core, you're rewiring beliefs, you're rewiring behaviors, and not make people unhappy at some point.
Yes. You're going to always make some people unhappy.
So as a CEO, if you haven't received the unhappy call, then you need to ask yourself, have I hired the right person? Are they focused on the right things?
Yeah. Okay. So it's really making sure that you're just, again, doubling down on focusing on what's important, right, for this transformation, what's going to help move it forwards, change the needle to get to that desired outcome of whatever it might be.
And I think there are two things that two behaviors that really make this role successful, or it's a mission impossible. Number one, which you don't have it as a chief of staff because it's a given. As a transformation officer, you need CEO visible sponsorship.
Yeah.
And I think this is something we see in private equity, where the fund and the private equity house loves you, and they put you in a role. They promote you in a few portfolio businesses, and you not necessarily have the understanding of what your role is about,
Yeah.
who you are from the CEO aspect.
Yes.
So having the visible sponsorship of the CEO, where they're backing you to make change happen, promote the programs you have to promote, focus on the things that matter to them,
Yeah.
so you can be successful for them and for the business. This is critical. And the second one is, especially if you're coming from a chief of staff evolution, like I am, so now we're already 4.0, you need to rebrand yourself.
Yeah.
You're not the back behind the scenes fixer, you're front stage. You will have a team. Probably you have an integrations team, an M&A team, some operations team, depending on what is your trajectory. You have a team. You may have a budget.
Yep.
As a chief of staff, you don't have a budget. So you have a budget transformation officer. And then you rebrand yourself with the executive team. You are the peer now. You're a peer.
Yeah.
So this is a different narrative. And usually it's a different narrative from you to them, rather the other way around.
Nice. Well, I want to change a bit of the direction of travel that we've been talking about, because as we mentioned, you do a lot of charitable work. You have done for many years, and you're involved with a charity called Smile Train, where you do a lot of work over in Ghana. So I'd like to talk a bit about that, because I think there's some really interesting points, and certainly some things that most people won't know about. I certainly didn't know about any of it until we started talking. So first of all, tell us a bit more about Smile Train. What do they do, and how are you involved?
I am a supporter of Smile Train. I'm not part of the board
Yeah.
or something. I am just a donor and supporter. But I find at Smile Train a purpose that it took. I was looking for a while. Smile Train is originally a New York based charity, so American charity. They have an office here in the UK, and they do more than 20 million surgeries across the world for the last few years, and they are providing healthcare access and do the surgeries for adults and kids that suffer from cleft condition.
Hmm.
And I didn't know what cleft condition was. I very randomly saw in LinkedIn a post from Susie Scheifer, who is the CEO of Smile Train. One of mine, someone in my network had commented on it and just popped up on my wall. And apparently, cleft is not only when your lip is tied to your nose;
Hmm.
is when the whole palate is missing.
Right.
So when the whole palate is missing, it may take up to 20-25 surgeries to 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 fix this, because if you're a baby you cannot breastfeed, you can barely breathe. If you're an adult you cannot talk. So it really does, especially in areas that they are deprived areas. It really stigmatizes you.
Mm.
And what really resonated with me is the fact that it's 100% treatable.
Okay. But it's just not being treated on the most part.
It's a lack of education
Yeah.
and awareness for sure, but it's lack of healthcare access as
Okay.
well. So being able to provide that healthcare access, which is what Smile Train is doing. So Smile Train do both. They do train the nurses and the doctors to conduct surgeries. They do provide that kind of healthcare access via some centers. They are working with local governments to build, like the one we inaugurated in Ghana back in June. And lastly, they are providing the education and the awareness to the rest of us here in the world to understand that this is happening.
Yeah.
This is in 2025,
Yeah.
and it's 100% treatable, and it's for a very small cost.
Yeah.
Comparing to the cost of living, especially here in the UK, that every penny matters, right, and can make a difference. So this is how I came across Smile Train.
Okay, unbelievable. Because it's one of those things that, again, you're probably quite sheltered to. Most people won't know anything about this as being a problem because, say, a bit like you'll have heard of, okay, what is a cleft palate? What does that mean? People will probably know roughly what it means.
You think it's
But
cosmetic,
yeah,
right? I thought it was cosmetic. I didn't know that it was an actual condition.
yeah,
And even today they don't know what's creating cleft, if it's genetic or not. Um, but one thing that really resonated with me is that, as you said in the beginning, I've been doing a lot of work with a lot of charities for many years since I was a kid, together with my family. But the older I get, the more I want to feel that the impact is becoming tangible.
hmm,
I want to see it. I want to witness it. I really want to see how I'm making impact into someone's life. And I think with Small Train, I was able to get that sense of purpose because I was able to see, okay, this is a surgery. This is how much it cost. This was the kid before and after.
yeah.
So you really have changed a human life.
Which is amazing, right? You actually get to see
Yeah.
the trail of how it all happens ultimately,
Mm.
rather than most people would give some money, don't think about it ever again. That's it.
And that's the thing, right? Because I have supported a lot of charities, which I don't want to call here, but you give, let's say, £20, £30 per month. If you ask how much money out of this ends up going to the kid, it's less than £1.50.
Yeah.
Well, you say, Anthee, these charities and NGOs need to operate somehow. So yes, there will be administrative costs, but again, goes back to what I want to see now, the impact I want to make, and I want to experience, and I want to see it. So it really matters for me to have that tangible effect, which I didn't get
Yeah.
before.
And it strikes me as that's the kind of person you are, right? In business as well. You want to see
True.
the impact.
I want to see the impact.
That's
Yeah,
that's what
true.
it's all about.
That's a good point.
And what would you give as some advice then to someone perhaps looking at elevating their career, maybe they're sort of early phases, maybe they're mid phases. I don't know. Like, what's the one bit of advice that you would give someone to try and really push themselves forward to elevate their career if they're thinking, I want to do something different?
Number one, be clear what you want.
Hmm.
Shut down the noise once you're clear what you want. Number two. Number three, don't take things personally. I think this is where, as all of us have experienced in the beginning of our career, we're a bit too emotionally invested on situations and people. Don't take things personally.
Yeah.
You'll fall, pick up again, keep going.
Yeah. Keep learning.
Keep learning, keep going, keep evolving. And the thing is that the market does evolve. The industry does evolve. Today's AI, tomorrow will be something else, right? So it's all about how you becoming that resilient on this.
Anthee, thank you
Yes.
very much for coming on the podcast.
Thank you, Rupert, for
Really
inviting.
fascinating talking to you. I'm sure lots of people are going to learn lots from this. So, yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you, Rupert. Good to be here.